Hi Deepa, welcome to the world of women travelers. I mean, you've already been there, and thanks for doing this interview for Girls on the Go. So, Deepa has actually been solo traveling for almost 2 decades right now, and she's been doing very interesting forms of traveling where she's been traveling long term without carrying any money with her and without carrying a cell phone with her. And she's been also doing long cycling trips and long hitchhiking trips. So she's one of the most inspirational women travelers I've met in a very, very long time. So thank you once again, Deepa, for agreeing to speak to other women travelers.
Happy to be here.
Most welcome. So Deepa, what prompted you to start these long-term travels? So what happened just before that? What are the life events that led to you wanting to start this form of travel? This is very unusual for women from India especially to travel this way. So tell us how it started.
So I used to study in Jaipur. That's where I went and did my college. And my parents used to drop me to this Bikaner house in Delhi from where buses used to go to Jaipur. And I would see these foreign women with rucksacks and some sleeping bags hanging, some shoes are tied, and they would be going in this bus with me to Jaipur. I'm going to the college and they are going to explore Rajasthan. And sometimes they would be seated next to me and I would ask them, okay, where are you from? Where are you going? How long are you traveling? And they would all say, they would be 20 years old, 25 years old, and they're saying they're traveling for 2 years, 3 years. And it would I can't even imagine that a world of travel and living on the road is possible when I was 18. And I think somewhere some seed got sowed that someday this will happen to me. And eventually it did. So I think this was my, this is where it happened.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So, which was the first long trip that you did, and how did it pan out?
The first longest trip, it depends how we define long, but my first, let's say 2 weeks, that was long then. Okay. 2003 or 4.
Okay.
That was a long trip, and that was to Spiti with 2 friends, and we went camping to Spiti. That was 2 weeks.
Okay.
But even before that, the trip that I want to mention is I went to Rishikesh. That was my first trip. Okay. So I was 21 years old. I just started earning, and I'd gone to a camp in Delhi where they were bungee jumping, and the instructors were Germans. Wonderful. And after 3 days, they were leaving for a rafting trip, and they invited me to come with them. Okay. And of course, my parents said no. And I said, but you kept saying that when I earn my money, I can travel and I can do this and that and conquer the world. And they said, no, you can't go with some bunch of strangers. And I went. Despite everything, I just packed a bag. I didn't know how to pack. I didn't know what to carry, what kind of bag to carry, nothing. I just packed my bag. And this is when, when you go from one city to another, the phone, there's no roaming.
Right.
This is that era where... if you make a call from another state to Delhi, your money kind of finishes in prepaid. Right. This is that era. Right. So I went and I told these guys that I want to come, and they said you have to be here at 5:30. But by the time I could make up my mind, it was 12:30 p.m. So they left, and I said, okay, it's 12:30 and I really want to go, and I just went to ISBT, the interstate bus terminal. For the first time in my life, little dandar ke. And I asked them, okay, which is the bus to Haridwar? And they said it's at platform number X. And then I go there and I sit in the bus, and I've never done this. So I'm sitting in a corner and I'm just wishing I get there, and that's it. And that was my first trip for 4 days, and it all kind of went well despite the hiccups. And then that was it. I never looked back.
Wonderful, wonderful. And which was your first long solo trip? Like, where you really pushed your boundaries and you really, really
Yeah. Long solo trip. There were many till I was working. About 2009, I did many solo trips, but short ones. But after I stopped, I quit my corporate job. And rather, I was fired during the recession, which was a blessing in disguise.
Good for you.
Yeah, so don't be scared if you're fired. Just enjoy the time and the pink slip money. So I was fired, and I took about 3-4 years off. I did nothing. That's when I was free and solo traveling. And I clearly remember the longest solo travel was to Ladakh. I was there for a couple of months, where I worked in a bakery and I taught English for free accommodation and so on and so forth. My journey towards skill exchange, barter, free living, less money, no money started.
Wonderful.
Yeah, something like that.
And which was also your first trip where you experimented traveling without any money?
Yeah, so once a friend announced that he is doing a trip open to all without phones and money. This is under the Shikshantar Andolan, which is based out of Udaipur. And they said, just come and cycle along. So I just went to to Rajasthan, met him and other people. And for 7 days, we were just cycling through villages. And yeah, there was no phone, no money. And we were just living on generosity of the villages and doing some kind of work with hands for them to offer us food. Wonderful. That was the thing. But I was Rajasthan the first time, many years ago.
Nice. And then, which was the next one?
And then there was Rajasthan. Then there was one more trip to Rajasthan, again similar. And this was, I was kind of co-hosting it with this person who hosts it. And then I did Gujarat, a long walking trip from Ahmedabad to Dandi with 8 strangers from India. And we retraced the route that Gandhi did during the Salt March. That was again, no phones, no money, no preparations, no prior arrangements, nothing. Wow. We just walked it. That was 400 kilometers, 22 days. And then I went to Orissa, where another acquaintance of mine showed up, and we got cycles from a friend, and we just cycled through rural Orissa. So we went through the red corridors, across the Chilka Lake, and we were there for about 22 days. Again, no phones, no money, and it's said to be, but statistically it is said to be the poorest state of the country. Right. But from how we experienced it, we felt it was the richest state we've ever been to. We never slept. We never slept without we never slept on hungry stomachs. Nothing. And if it was freezing, which we did not know, this was December, and we've lived in families where we only have one blanket, and they've insisted, they've offered it to us. And 1,000 stories like this.
Amazing.
And then Orissa, and then last year was I cycled with another co-traveler from Delhi to Tamil Nadu, and this was again no phones, no money, and this is across the country. My longest trip, 2 months on the road.
Nice. And
totally building, not even building, this is totally like re-strengthening the muscle of surrender, trust, faith, of just many things, of pure humility, and seeing the country in a color which you don't read in WhatsApp messages or in the newspaper or on the television. This is experiencing the country the way it truly is, especially in the pandemic, which has
that's an interesting time to travel, because of course a lot of people were completely homebound during that time. So how was it like traveling during the pandemic, and that too doing such a long, unstructured travel? How was your experience with that?
We thought we will experience some kind of a pandemic hostility, that people will not offer us food or not let us stay in their houses, or they'll just sit there far away, wear a mask. But we experienced none of this. Most times we heard, okay, you're coming from Delhi, okay, you've left the corona behind, great. Welcome to the non-corona times.
Wonderful.
And most people in villages didn't even relate to the lockdown, the corona. They said it's a government-created disease, and it only happens to rich people, lazy people, or people who sit in ACs. And there was one place we went to where he asked me, have you done the canteen? Have you done corona canteen? And we couldn't understand it for a bit. And then we understood he's saying, have you done the corona quarantine?
Oh,
the word quarantine, as it has travelled from the capital to the villages, it has become, in MP, it has become something like this. Canteen. And he said, we've done the canteen. He said, okay, then you're safe. Come sit in my veranda, have a cup of tea, don't worry. So, we heard all kind of stories about corona, except that it is infectious and it's a disease. Everything else we kept hearing.
Very interesting perspective, because I think a lot of people are still very concerned about traveling and leaving their homes. And, I think stories like yours are inspiration that it is okay with, of course, a certain amount of planning to once again get out on the roads and start traveling. So it's good to hear your side of the story on this.
I'm glad. Yeah.
But what kind of challenges do you face, or when you're traveling without money, you are completely dependent upon the hospitality of completely unknown people? So what kind of challenges have you faced? Like, have you ever been in a situation where you've let's say not had immediate access to accommodation or food, and have you ever had to go like sleeping on a hungry stomach, or how do you deal with accommodation and food related logistics, especially when you're traveling on unstructured journeys?
So the challenges are only within. Outside there were no challenges, and the challenge only gets challenging when I suddenly stop trusting. When again the old pattern pushes in to say, okay, we're not gonna get food today. It's already getting dark. It's 6 p.m. We're not gonna get a place to sleep. So we have to just keep telling ourselves that it's all going to happen. Just wait. Maybe 5 more minutes, maybe 10 more minutes, maybe 15 more minutes. It's all going to happen. So that was the challenge. And otherwise, we always got accommodation, and we always had food. The only night we slept semi-hungry stomach was Diwali. Otherwise, we always slept on full stomachs.
Okay, wonderful. And obviously, as a solo Indian woman traveler, I'm sure you must have been asked dozens of questions about how is it that you're traveling solo, married or not married. Like, what kind of questions do you usually encounter on the roads, and how do you deal with that, and what kind of reactions do you get from people?
Yeah. So as a solo woman traveler, I mostly say the truth, and unless I am asked the truth with a man who I feel little dodgy, and then I would say I'm married and I would like stare away. But mostly I would say the truth. I'm not married and I'm 40 and this and that. And on this trip, because I was my co-traveler was a boy, and we were traveling through rural India, we had already decided we were going to tell the people we are married. So we had already rehearsed that, okay, we are married on this day, and it's going to be a year, and it's just been a year, and we're doing this journey together, and that's about it. Right. So we already, because I cannot, in a village you cannot, because I wanted no attention on the relationship. So the minute you say marriage, they relax. Right. And I don't want questions about the marriage, and I don't want to tell them I met the guy on Facebook where I wrote I'm cycling to Tamil Nadu, I want a co-traveler. So you can't explain this in a rural context. True. So how to just get past it in a very simple white lie. Right. And it's really smoothens things out, because I wanted to have other kind of conversations. Right. Government, politics, corona, female feticide, many things that I wanted to pay attention to.
Nice. So an important question is that, like I'm sure a lot of women have an aspiration like to live the kind of life that you live. But I think a lot of people have questions about, will their health and their fitness support this kind of long-term travel? So how do you keep yourself like physically and also mentally fit? So do you have like a fitness or a health regime that you follow, certain superfoods that you eat? Like, what's your secret to your fountain of youth and health, I would say? Because I think that's an important part of travel, like, keeping oneself fit. So how do you manage that?
So on the cycling trip, we had a very interesting health routine. Because you're cycling, you are automatically getting fitter and fitter. Right. And second thing is, we didn't cycle in the sun. From 12 to 3, we would take a break. So we're not cycling in the full sun. That's another precaution for heat strokes, and also wasting energy and just taking a nap. And also slowing down. And in the morning, we would start our day with raw ginger, which is a muscle relaxant. Then we will have some moringa / drumstick leaves from wherever a tree we would see. Nice. We will have some lemons on us, and we will make a lemon drink with pink salt, which we were carrying from Delhi. And that's our dehydration syrup instead of having an ORS and being dependent on when you're out of ORS. So we decided some basic immunity strategies, and that kept us super fit. And we ate fresh food because we stopped at places and there was fresh food. There was dal and roti. This is good carbs.
Right.
And we were just very healthy. We didn't eat, there was no access to pastries and cakes and biscuits and all these things which kind of change your immunity pattern.
Right.
We didn't have access to all this. So we only ate healthy, and we swam in every lake we came across. And that is like a nutrition dip. Sun charts, algae charts, full of fantastic microbacterial life. And if you take a dip in that, you're totally done.
Wonderful.
You need nothing more.
Wonderful.
And these were our attempts to live a medicine-free life on the road and otherwise in life.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And Deepa, you're also into other things like permaculture, and I remember seeing some photos you've shared of roof gardening. So tell us about the other things that you also do, and how do you explore that side of yours when you're traveling?
Yeah, so traveling is my first love, and then the other, whatever love is left, bifurcates into some sections, and that is about creating small sustainable gardens for people, especially in the city, living a zero waste lifestyle, which means having a having a dustbin which is not which is free of waste, attempting that. Then I'm interested to live on things which are only hand-me-down, so I haven't shopped in a long time. What else? Yeah, and I'm also interested in holistic conflict resolutions between people, especially between romantic, intimate partners. That's my new area of interest.
Interesting.
And yeah, and other small things.
Wonderful. I mean, I think it's all of this holistic lifestyle that kind of translates into this kind of travel lifestyle that you've chosen.
Yeah.
I think it's not just like you've picked up your bags and gone. I think it's been coming from a different place. So it's good to know the other aspects of you. And so, I mean, obviously this kind of lifestyle would have brought about, major perspective shifts, and you would have developed like some philosophical takes on life. So can you tell us a little bit about what kind of perspectives have you gained over the years, and what kind of shifts have you experienced?
Couple of things. I realize the more I share, the more is shared with me. Which means if there's more for the other, that also means there's more for me, and not not like the other way around. And which deeply is grounding me into a sense of abundance, which anyway I feel is the beat of the universe. And second thing is, I feel the world is a really safe, nourishing place. I feel the entire universe is always conspiring to keep me happy and nourished. And whenever I feel, I presume something is not going my way, this is all presumptions which are coming from me within. I feel, then there must be something I have to either learn from it, or I have to learn to drop it, or I have to learn to wait and see what will emerge out of it. So these are some key lessons which are learned on the road, because the road teaches you really fast, even if you don't want to learn it. Yeah. And these lessons are anyway coming in life, even for people who don't travel or don't have travel as a lifestyle.
Right. So it's an important thing you said about, feeling that, everything is kind of conspiring to keep you safe. Now, obviously, safety and women traveling, especially solo women traveling, really go hand in hand. Like, that's the most important question any woman would ask. So while of course, one needs to surrender a bit and trust the forces of the universe, but are there any additional safety precautions that you take when you're doing these kind of trips? And also, what kind of suggestions would you have for women who would like to follow along the same path like yours? How do you protect yourself?
Yeah, so some simple, very basic things that I keep in mind, despite to what you said. Okay, we must surrender, we must have faith, everybody is safe, but still we still have to understand that the social competence sometimes is very low, and we have to meet the social competence where it is than to meet it where we want it to be. So, like if I'm parking my cycle where no one is around, I'll lock it. Like in this cycling trip, we used to stop at 5:30 because once it gets dark, then telling your story and getting accommodation in a village is really hard because they can't see you, they can't see your cycles.
Right.
So we would do everything in the daytime. At 5:30, we'll tell our story in the village, and 5:30 we know where we are sleeping, under which tree or which porch and so on. If I'm alone, I won't hitchhike in the night, especially late night. I would like to be settled somewhere when it's night.
Right.
And if I'm in the middle of nowhere, then I like to stop and try to get somewhere. That's one thing. And and I stay away from drunk people. So if I come across somebody who's drunk, and then I would just move away.
Right.
And that is if I can tell the person is drunk, because sometimes that takes time. But now I've been told the key rule that if a person is drunk, they repeat the same thing many times. So this is like a hint. So then I'll move away from that situation than to try to fight it or give him a lecture on alcoholism and stuff like that. So I'll just exit.
Right.
So something like that. And in the day I would be more carefree. Like I've hitchhiked in a car of, I've gone to Ladakh in a car of 5 men in the day and hitchhiking from point A to point B, and it's okay, and I wouldn't mind that.
Right.
But I wouldn't do that in the evening. And just simple things. Maybe they mean nothing, but they bring me some kind of idea of peace and safety.
Absolutely. So like you mentioned about how, you've hitchhiked in a car with 5 men. So are there any specific technique that you use to kind of steer the conversations in a particular direction, or any, particular strategies you use to deal with that situation? Because I think this is something where a situation in which any woman traveler could find herself, where, you're traveling with a mixed bunch of people or with just guys. So how do you ensure that, the vibe is kept positive and it doesn't become like a male-female kind of a divide? Like, do you steer the conversation in a particular way?
There are ways like making eye contact, getting to know their names, what they do.
Right.
And when they ask, for example, they'll ask you what your name is, where you are from, where you're going. And when it gets a little personal, they'll say, give us your number. I mean, usually I don't, because I just say email me. That's the best, because I don't use the phone so often. And if they ask, and if it's the vibe. If I feel okay, this can get too personal, then I'll sometimes say I'm married or I have a boyfriend, and then kind of it stays away. Right. But I think the more interest I take in their lives, it kind of, that is I feel it's a beautiful spot. Because they feel that I would really like to know them. And when you know people, then it automatically brings some kind of a safety net in place.
Right. Wonderful. Okay. So, can you on the parting note, for women travelers, in terms of how they can plan these kind of trips? So if there's somebody who's, say, never traveled except, for families or with group trips, if they want to do this kind of solo travel, what's the simplest and the best way for them to start? Are there any destinations that you recommend? How do they go about planning, say, the initial finances, because to have some sort of backup thing, even if they're not carrying the money with them? On that note, also, how do you fund some of your trips?
Sure.
So can you just give some pointers on that?
So for beginners, I would always say that do a short trip before, like a weekend trip to a friend's house in another city. That takes care of the accommodation, and you're only spending on travel and some kind of food and some kind of sightseeing.
Right.
And then you can do a weekend trip. The next time you do a long weekend trip to another person's house, and then you build the number of days. Right. And once you think you're more comfortable at least traveling alone, which means basically commuting from A to B. Right. Then you can think of, okay, you want to go to, let's say, a dream destination, and you figure out a week's holiday, because usually the day you travel and the day you come back, those have to be eliminated from your travel days, because those are days you're packing and going, or repacking and coming back. And Pia, interview happening. Wait, Paniya, 2 minutes. Nandri. Sorry. Yeah. So let's say that's 5 days of travel, and then I would say you can look at various options of staying. You can, because it's your first travel, I would say you find a place on Airbnb, or you find a place on Hostel World or Booking.com. You read some reviews by women travelers, and you book a place which fits your budget, whatever it is. And then you go, and then you have 5 days of accommodation sorted, so you know when you step out of your hostel, you know where you'll come back. You're not lost at all.
Right.
And then you can go, and something like that. And then 5 days you can plan. Okay, you want to see 2 things today, and you want to eat at a third place today, and just you plan longer days, but you pack less in.
Got it.
And that should ideally relax your 7 days, but minus the days you're going and coming. Don't include those, because those are not experiencing travel days. Those are just commuting days.
Right. And the last question, and this is like a deep question, is that what is your idea of home? Because, as a woman who's been traveling on the roads for so many years, have you explored the concept of what home feels like to you? And you've, of course, stayed at so many homes and everything. So what, according to you, is your definition of home?
Now, after almost 2 decades of travel, and especially the last year when I've been away from my parents' home, which is my nest, this whole year has helped me reach a place where I feel any place can be home now, and I don't have to be in my bedroom in my parents' house to be at home, but I can be this place is right now home. And we've just met a stranger who invited us for lunch and then to her house, and she was leaving, and she said, you relax and stay back and do an interview and have chai, and then there's a driver who'll drop you back. And she's left the whole house to herself, and she does not know me, and she does not even know you so well. You just met twice. This kind of trust, where I feel this kind of trust, that place is home for me.
Wonderful.
It's it's nothing tangible, but it's so much that has been offered, in somebody's house, more than a home. It's basically trusting that I'm a person, you're a being, you're another being, and I'm a being, and I trust you with my home, and I know you will do nothing that will break this trust.
Exactly.
That is home.
Wonderful. I think that's a beautiful, note to close on. And for everybody who's, listening to Deepa speak, you can follow her on Facebook on her blog, Pipilika, where she's sharing all her beautiful, photographs and travelogues about her long-term travel. And you can choose to go through that and even help and support her in her journeys,
or come along. That's always an option.
Absolutely.
So I would rather see you on the road than on a Facebook
online
message box.
Yes, so do check out Pipilika on Facebook. So once again, Deepa, thank you so much for this beautiful conversation.
Most welcome.
And I'm sure a lot of inspired to take off on journeys of their own.
Amen.
Thanks a lot.
See you.